With the Sharks now having lost 6 straight games, we dig into some of the issues surrounding this recent recession.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker of the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. Want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be looking at some of the kind of biggest issues surrounding the Sharks, especially during this recent regression in play, as they have now lost 6 straight games and are firmly in that race for the number 1 overall pick. So instead of doing a normal, like, the Sharks lost 7-2 on Saturday to the Panthers, I thought it's a good time to kind of take a step out and look at the roster construction, goaltending issues, and some of the coaching decisions from Ryan Warsofsky. So before we get into all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right. Again, the Sharks lost 7-2, thoroughly outplayed by the Panthers, who are, of course, the defending champions, and the Sharks, who are, of course, the defending champions of the first overall pick. And there really wasn't much to take away from that game. Will Smith remains hot. The defense is porous. Goaltending hasn't been great. And the Sharks are just kind of running out of NHL bodies when it comes to the forward group. So instead of spending 25 minutes kind of breaking down that game and the same kind of beats that we've heard recently, I thought this would be a good time to kind of look at some of the issues that have been kind of plaguing the Sharks. And I think the first one, I think the biggest thing that kind of stems from why, especially right now, why the Sharks are kind of having some issues, I think it's roster construction, right? And we knew, at least most people kind of knew, like, this team was going to be a bad team this year. While I think they have more talent in other areas, right? Especially among the top 6 forward group, right? Macklin Celebrini, we all love. William Macklin has made a big jump this year. Tyler Toffoli has added a lot of veteran presence and has been able to score. Mikael Granlund is kind of really finding his game again. Like, the top 6 has been kind of the consistent for the Sharks. And I know Granlund has had a bit of a slump in December and beginning of January, but really kind of found his game again here. And you're seeing the Sharks score more goals, right? Scored 10 goals in 2 games against the Nashville Predators. I know, again, the Sharks only scored twice, but the offense, especially in the first period, wasn't really the issue. The issue right now, I think, is the back end, right? And the Sharks' blue line has been kind of a problem spot for the past couple seasons, right? But right now, I think you're really kind of starting to see those issues crop up more, and especially with Jake Walman, who was, especially beginning of the season, Jake Walman has been the Sharks' best defenseman, right? And he has had an amazing season for the Sharks. I think better than any of us expected. But since Walman's return from his injury, he really hasn't been the same guy yet, right? And I don't know with Walman if it takes a little bit to kind of get back into form or whatever, but like, he just hasn't really been the same player that he was, especially at the beginning of the season. The play that sticks out to you the most, right, is the Matthew Tkachuk goal, where Tkachuk literally kind of he does the like, oop, let me squeeze by you, and Jake Walman just kind of stands there and like doesn't even engage. And Tkachuk, like you can't leave Matthew Tkachuk wide open in front of the net. He's gonna like, I don't like, Askarov had no chance there. But Walman maybe kind of not at 100% right now, or not kind of fully back up to Jake Walman standards. Plus, the rest of the defense just hasn't been up to snuff. And I think that is a huge part, right, of kind of what is definitely going wrong with this team right now. Okay, so Vlasic, who's returned, has looked serviceable, but didn't have a good game on Saturday night, right? Absolute pizza he gives up for the first goal. Cody Ceci, has had his ups and downs. And like we've talked about a lot with Cody Ceci, where he kind of always finds himself in no man's land. Ferraro has had, his ups and downs, and he's played better, I think, as of late, but still it's like the analytics and the numbers are not friendly towards Mario Ferraro this season. Liljegren has been okay-ish. I don't think we've gotten maybe the offensive production that we would hope to have seen from Timothy Liljegren this season. Henry Thrun is, especially among the among the analytics, has been one of the worst defensemen this season. Like the good thing, like the silver lining, is none of these guys are signed after next season. Like Vlasic, Walman, Ceci, Vlasic, Walman, Ferraro, Liljegren, Thrun all expire 25-26. Ceci, Ruda, who just got put on IR, those guys are expiring contracts this year. So there is a lot of this room is going to change very, very quickly, right? And if pieces aren't traded off this trade deadline, the Sharks can move pieces this offseason, especially for teams who want an expiring contract, cost control type of guys, and they don't want to maybe kind of dip into free agency. All these guys, there's nothing preventing these guys from being moved except for Marc-Edouard Vlasic, who is going to be here until the sun expires. But and nobody's taking his $7 million contract. So, but all the rest of these guys here are we could look at a completely revamped blue line, and that should be the goal of the San Jose Sharks this offseason, is to completely revamp their blue line, because right now it has not been playing well. And when you give up a bajillion goals to the Preds in 2 games, again, I know the Panthers are an absolute machine, right? But it was all those goals were way too easy. And yes, you definitely want to save on some of those goals, but I think just the caliber of talent on the defensive blue line is really an issue right now. And it would have been a lot for Mike Grier to try to, you can't fix everything overnight, right? You can't fix it all in one offseason. And Mike Grier this offseason spent a lot, he focused on trying to add some more talent, getting Tyler Toffoli, getting Alex Lundberg to the Sharks. He did some moves defensively, right? Getting Cody Ceci and Jake Walman through trades, but free agency, right? He went out and prioritized those guys this offseason to try to get Macklin Celebrini in a better position to succeed. So I'm not faulting Mike Grier. Again, you can't fix everything all at once, right? And the Sharks have a lot of extremely exciting guys in the pipeline defensively. Sam Dickinson, who's really been playing very well for London, not only this season, but I think right now he's been playing some of his best hockey as of late for London. Shahir Mukhamadullin and Jack Thompson, who's now just got recalled. They have Luca Cagnoni. They have a lot of exciting guys who are just not NHL ready quite yet, or right on the verge of being NHL ready, especially guys like Mukhamadullin and Jack Thompson here. So, but right now, just with the veteran guys, there's just not enough talent along the blue line. I think that's one of the biggest issues for the Sharks. So we're going to look at kind of the next big issue, I think. And I think for them, it's kind of the lack of confidence in goaltending right now. So we're going to look at kind of, and I made some charts. We're going to look at some charts, especially kind of a timeline for the Sharks goaltending. Why it kind of reminds me of a former San Jose Shark goaltender. And then we're also going to talk about Ryan Warsofsky and some of his decisions here in just 1 second. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, tails never fails, baby. FanDuel makes it easy to get on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. Live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field. The app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, an official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, before we continue, we talk about some of the goaltending issues. I think a lack of confidence in the goaltending right now. Do want to, of course, thank you guys for making the Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't, now is a perfect time to subscribe to Locked On Sharks wherever you get podcasts, wherever you're listening to this, or if you're watching on YouTube. Now, great times to subscribe as we start to kind of really ramp up our draft coverage, sliding for Schaefer, or messing for Misa, or whatever it is you prefer. We are going to get you covered here at Locked On Sharks. So, and if you're listening, especially on Apple, great time to stop and leave a review. So thank you guys in advance. All right. Goaltending, right? And I was kind of having a conversation with Sharks fans on Twitter on Saturday night as we were all commiserating about kind of what has happened to this team that really kind of, like this team, especially in November, right? Fun, competitive, they're not going to win every game, but they're going to really kind of play hard and stuff like that. And I still think they're playing hard for the most part, but I think the big issue right now is you're kind of seeing a team that maybe has lost some confidence in his goaltending, especially with Mackenzie Blackwood being traded, right? And I know a lot of Sharks fans are still like, why do we trade Mackenzie Blackwood? We don't need to go through that all again. But again, like, one, the Sharks weren't paying Mackenzie Blackwood the $5 million he got. 2, it didn't make sense for the Sharks to pay Mackenzie Blackwood the $5 million he got, especially for 5 years when you have Askarov, who's, I know he has struggled recently. We'll get into that here in a second. And 3, like, you didn't want to potentially play with fire, especially for a guy like Mackenzie Blackwood, who has had injury issues. So, but since then, the Sharks really they've seen some solid goaltending play, but I think right now you're really kind of seeing the effects of really shaky goaltending playing. So I made a nice little map if you're watching on YouTube. If not, I will definitely explain it. So Evolving Hockey, they have this nice kind of rolling save percentage where you can kind of you can see a graph of like the Sharks save percentage. And I went through and I kind of broke it down. I made little kind of spruced it up, especially on YouTube. But you can see like in October, which is kind of, if you're watching on YouTube, is the first kind of orange gradient. Like the Sharks had solid goaltending, but it kind of started to dip down. In November, you see the goaltending really spike back up, and that's when, especially kind of right when Mac Celebrini came back. So you had a boost with Mac Celebrini coming back. Mackenzie Blackwood is playing really well. Vitek Vanacek was playing pretty decently as well. And then like end of November, you saw the goaltending kind of dip again, right? And you think about that time, there was some shootout, a lot of high scoring games. You think of like the Kraken game, right, where it was like a 7-5 type of performance. Like you look at those type of performances, right? The goaltending kind of dipping down again. And then you see where the Sharks traded Mackenzie Blackwood. I put a nice little marker there. So Mackenzie Blackwood gets traded, and it's the save percentage kind of remains the same, a little bit of a spike. With the expectation rates, Vitek Vanacek and Alexander Gorgiev are going to kind of split the load here. But what happens right after that is Vitek Vanacek gets hurt, right? Takes a errant puck to the face and has been out since then. And that was right in the middle, I think, December 18th. Askarov gets called up, and you see a huge bump, right? Askarov plays a bunch of games. The save percentage really you see, wow, Askarov is awesome, right? The save percentage is going up. Askarov is playing out of his mind here. And then I made a little last marker, last healthy Askarov game, right? Gorgiev starts playing a bunch of games because Askarov gets sick, loses a bunch of weight, and he hasn't been healthy since. And the save percentage since then has plummeted, like just straight plummet. So the goaltending, which has been very up and down this season, right? But with Mackenzie Blackwood back there, you kind of had a feeling like no matter like the game situation, you had a feeling Mackenzie Blackwood can steal us a game. Cool. Askarov, when he was healthy, man, Askarov's playing well. If you know what, even if the defense is a little leaky, or if whatever's happening with the goalie, like if the Sharks, the defensemen are a little leaky, the forwards can kind of play their game where they don't have to really feel like if we mess up, it's going back to the net because Askarov's got us covered. Then what happens? Askarov's been sick, hasn't looked the same. Alexander Gorgiev has played a ton recently, and the goaltending has gone to poop. With that, the Sharks have really lost their confidence because now any mistake seems to go straight to the back of it. And we saw it happen time in and time out on Saturday night, right? Every turnover in the defensive zone felt like it went straight into the net on Saturday night. And I expect Askarov to get healthy, and Vitek Vanacek's going to be coming back here at some point, right? He's already started practicing. And like the goaltending could potentially improve. Like there's definitely an avenue for that. But this really much reminds me of, think way back to Martin Jones' last like year and a half or so, right? When the team, you could tell, right? The team felt like they had to play perfect in front of Martin Jones because any mistake was going to end up in the back of the net. And I always make the same analogy as like, we all have that coworker, or we've all worked with some guy or gal where they just can't do the job, and it feels like everybody else then has to kind of pull their weight or kind of do extra to make up for this. And that's how it feels right now because the Sharks feel like if they don't play perfectly, it's just going to end up in the back of the net. And what happens when you try to kind of force things a little bit too much and try to play perfectly? You end up just making more mistakes. So I think the lack of solid goaltending has really, really hurt the Sharks. So I do believe when Vanacek does come back to being healthy, I expect Askarov to go back to the Barracuda, hopefully try to regain some of his confidence, try to get healthy again. And then I think they'll play it from there. So, you can put Gorgiev on waivers. I would assume he'd be the guy who gets placed on waivers. Nobody's claiming Alexander Gorgiev right now, but that would be kind of my assumption, especially with the way Askarov has played the last few games here. I also just, for fun, I pulled up last year's rolling save percentage. And there are multiple, it's a lot kind of similar to where, Mackenzie Blackwood started out really great. And then you have like massive, it kind of, like just a massive drop off. And then you can kind of see right around the trade deadline where the Sharks, traded Kaapo Kähkönen, they got Devin Cooley in, and just the save percentage, like there's times where it's like off the chart if you're not watching on YouTube, especially like that 70 game mark when the Sharks were just really rolling towards the first number one pick. Devin Cooley, a couple nice little spikes in there at the end, but the goaltending has been an issue, and that's why you went out and traded for Askarov to hopefully fix this problem, and give you a little bit more just insurance that if your defense, which isn't stellar, if they're gonna make mistakes, at least the goaltending can hopefully bail you out. So we'll talk about some of the coaching decisions, especially some of the lineup decisions, maybe the team kind of not being prepared, all that stuff here. We'll get to that in just 1 second. All right, before we talk about Ryan Warsofsky, do want to, of course, thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Probably part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. When you're done with this episode, you should go check out one of the other great shows here at Locked On. You have Locked On Fantasy Hockey. If your fantasy hockey team needs some help, they got you covered there. Or check out one of the other shows here in the Bay Area. Locked On Niners, Locked On Warriors, Locked On A's, Locked On Giants. Plenty of great stuff here at the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. All right, Ryan Warsofsky. And I know there is growing contingent of fans who are like, what does this guy do here? The Sharks should fire him, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not there. Like, I think Ryan Warsofsky is a good coach. I think he's won at every level he's been at. I also think as a rookie head coach, you're going to have a lot of ups and downs, just like a rookie player, right? Mackenzie Blackwood, Will Smith, whomever. They've all had their ups and downs. Ryan Warsofsky has also had his ups and downs too. So I am not on the fire Ryan Warsofsky. Is there things he needs to do better? Yes, of course. There are things that he needs to do better. But I still think he's a very talented coach, and I think he's the right coach for this team right now. Like, the Sharks could have Scotty Bowman right now, and they're not winning. This team is just a talent port. Yes, they have more talented pieces, but overall, this is a growing team right now. So some of the big decisions and kind of question marks I do have with Ryan Warsofsky, and one of those I think is kind of when things go wrong, how just this team kind of falls apart there, right? And this could also be a question about a captain and, kind of, is there that rally guy? And I think that does play a little bit into it, right? Especially with Logan Couture, who is the captain, but has played 6 games in the past 2 seasons. And realistically, if you were betting, does Logan Couture play again? I'm taking the no. I just don't think he ever plays again. And if he does, is Logan Couture ever going to be Logan Couture again? No, it's just right. A guy who basically is going to, even if he comes back next year, he's never going to be the same Logan Couture. It's just right. A guy who's played 6 games in 2 years, he's probably never going to be the same guy again. So do the Sharks need a captain? Probably. Is there anybody on the Sharks right now who's captain material? Maybe Tyler Toffoli, maybe Mikael Granlund, but Granlund may not be here in 4 weeks, and Tyler Toffoli, he's going to be here for a while. Okay, but I just don't think the Sharks are going to make a move for a captain because your captain right now is 18 years old. The next captain of the Sharks is Mackenzie Blackwood. It's just a matter of time, right? you already see it from the 18-year-old. Like, you're seeing the kid right now. He's showing everything you want out of a captain at the age of 18, and it's just going to be a matter of time, right? Connor McDavid, he was named captain at 19. Like, it's a matter of time when they want to do it. So, but I do question about how sometimes this team does, as soon as things go bad, right? Like, things go out like horrifically bad. And I don't know if that's, again, kind of goes back to the issue of, well, they're not doing their job, so I got to do a little bit more. And that leads to more bad things happening. Like, whatever the root is, and I don't know what the root problem is for that. Like, is it, again, just it's a poor roster, especially on the blue line, and the team right now just doesn't have confidence in its goaltending. So yeah, I mean, I can see why when things go bad they snowball, and Ryan Warsofsky just doesn't have an answer for that right now. So I do think also some of this decisions that he could do better with is especially the bottom six, right? Barclay Goodrow and Luke Cunnin should not play on the same line together. Like, I know, and again, this team right now, they're running out of warm bodies. You look at who's on IR: Ty Dellandrea, Nico Sturm, Klim Kostin. All those guys are, kind of key pieces, especially Nico Sturm, in your bottom six here. And you're having to rely on guys that you're finding off waivers that are kind of AHL talent guys, and Walker Dewar. Walker Dewar is probably a AHL, NHL tweener type of guy. Scott Sabrin, who I have a soft spot for Scott Sabrin, but is a career AHL player. Colin White, it's kind of turned into a AHL player. Like, they just, again, like they just don't have enough talent, especially in the bottom six. And I think there hasn't been an emergence of a third line for the Sharks that you can count on night in, night out. And that just comes down to a talent issue. They just don't have enough good players right now. I do wonder, as the season kind of wears on and the roster kind of gets picked apart a little bit more from the trade deadline, if the Sharks do give guys like Thomas Bordelot and Colin Graf a long look at the third line to try to, again, especially if Alex Wenberg is going to be your third line center, to try to maybe give the Sharks at least three options at lines that can produce offense here. But I think so. Some of the putting out Cunnin and Goodrow, and we saw it against the Preds, where those guys, anytime that line went out, the Preds just set up shop, right? And if it's not working, you can't keep going back to that well and thinking now's the time it's going to change. I know there's a lot of people who say he mixed up the lines too much. I also, because you got to let them get chemistry. I don't for me, I think at some point, if they're not working, you got to try something new. And especially, again, you have 5 players who are legitimate top 6 players. I guess 6 now with Will Smith's kind of emerged. You have 6 players who are legitimately top 6 players. And then it's just a bunch of kind of, Alex Wenberg solid. Luke Cunnin is probably a 4th liner on most teams. Grunstrom and Dellandrea and Kovalenko, all these guys are just kind of 4th line guys, and they have a lot more of those, which is good for the Barracuda. So you're not kind of going through the Barracuda's roster as this Barracuda team. They do want this Barracuda team to be good, but there's just not enough talent here. And I think you can question about some of those decisions there, but at some point you're just kind of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic here for Ryan Warsofsky. So some of the lineup questions, like I said, I do have questions about that. I do sometimes this team, especially does not look prepared to start. Those are some things that Warsofsky is going to have to work on. But I still think Ryan Warsofsky is a solid coach. I think he is going to continue to get better. I just think he's going to be a good coach. So maybe people can accuse me of carrying the water for Ryan Warsofsky. I think once this team gets more talent on it, you can see. I think then you can have conversations if you continue to see the same issues. But yeah, I think though, for like to kind of recap, I think just the blue line needs to be totally redone this offseason. And I think the Sharks just do not have faith in their goaltending, especially as of late, with Askarov not being anywhere near 100% and Georgiev struggling. So maybe Vitek Vanecek when he comes back, as where is Vitek Vanecek coming to the day? When Vitek Vanecek gets back, if he can kind of help maybe solidify the goaltending and at least give the Sharks a little bit more confidence with their goaltender, we can have another conversation with that. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back on Monday night after the Sharks-Penguins game. So make sure you're following wherever you get podcasts. And, of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until Monday, Tuesday, whenever. Bye, friends.